Welcome to our side event. Thanks for hanging on till 5:30 with all the delays. We have got a social after this, so hopefully you all are coming for that as well and hanging around. I wanted to just introduce this session because it's one of the ANH Academy. It's born out of one of the ANH Academy's fundamental goals, which is to support researchers and educators and practitioners around the world in not only researching, but educating across disciplines and sectors. And since so much education is research informed, there's a real synergy between bridging the gaps between researchers and also students, and who are the researchers and the policymakers of the future. So we're really glad to have a few members of our curriculum enrichment working group here with us today. Yes, if there is the click, I don't mind. Oh, you're doing it. Okay. Yes, so in 2017, we conducted a needs assessment among our global community of researchers and practitioners, and this was in response to a strong demand after the learning labs we were running every year to have something more significant and sustainable in terms of support for people, researchers around the world, because the learning labs were so short-lived every year. And we conducted a needs assessment, and the results of that pointed towards a strong articulated demand for more resources and opportunities to learn and share for one another. And so when the Amana program entered its second phase, we were lucky enough to have some funding to put together a working group to help guide the next phase of this work. And what you can see here in front of you are the members of the working group, many of whom are here sitting around this table and who you'll hear from today. And thank you for coming all this way to run this session and to have an exhibition space. And the aims of the working group were to respond to this consistent demand that we heard from our members around the world, and to help us design an approach that could support researchers globally in different places to teach across disciplines, which is complex, which incurs extra time, often extra funds, to do. And so what we did when we constituted this group was to develop a new needs assessment, a much more robust needs assessment that was mixed method, so a quantitative survey, but also followed by focus group discussions that was designed and undertaken by the curriculum enrichment working group. And also we wanted at the same time, while this was happening, to map and synthesize existing resources that existed out there that researchers and educators were already using, so that we could make them available for our community online. And this exists already online, this repository. And then finally, the group was tasked with helping us to design a suite of materials that could be used by educators around the world who wanted to start teaching topics that were outside of their disciplinary areas of comfort. So interdisciplinarity, it's one of those like words that's thrown around all the time. We use it a lot. Francis, yeah, over to you. Sorry, lost control. Francis is going to explain more about this, and then we'll talk about the what we're going to do today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Now, my work is very simple. My colleagues are going to do the most work, but I'm going to focus on multisectoriality and multidisciplinary. Why do they matter for nutrition and health? We know basically that a multisectorial and multidisciplinary approach allows to plan and to design programs that are efficient and sustainable. And you all know this when we're talking about multisectoriality. It brings together a coherent range of strategies to enhance food and nutrition security. So we are dealing with agric, where people from the agric sector can work together with people in the nutrition sector, work together with economists and social scientists, all coming from different angles to address one common problem. So these different groups will work collaboratively to address the common problem of poverty, so that ultimately we can meet the sustainable development goal. Now, we therefore need to reflect on our approach away from the business as usual and focus on a revolution of complementarity in the spirit of multisectoriality and multidisciplinary, drawing on inclusivity And it's very important, the word inclusivity, because nobody should be marginalized, nobody should be excluded. So what do we see at the Curriculum Enrichment Working Group? We are harnessing the skills that would equip researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and all the like to deliver multi-sectorially nutrition outcomes. Working, because nutrition is cross-cutting. And when we talk about the food value chain, which you all know about, we also have the nutrition-sensitive value chain. And we say that nutrition sensitive value chain is not for the nutritionist alone. The social scientists, the farmer, can work together with a nutritionist to address the common problem that we have, so that poverty will become a byword. It is my hope that we can harness these skills and the materials that will be developed by this group to support the needs of individuals who make the critical linkages that are needed. So we need you. But how do we do this? It is my privilege and honor to give Shweta the opportunity to get down to the nitty-gritty. Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you so much. First of all, again, I'll put on record, welcome, that despite such heavy day and lectures after lectures, but you've still come and shown solidarity to this. Yeah, I'll do this. Thank you. You've shown solidarity to this cause, which is very important in terms of interdisciplinary curriculum building. So I'm here just to give you a glimpse of what we did. The papers are on your tables. We have already published this work, at least the starting point. And we would want today to use this opportunity to actually seek feedback from the educators and from the students to understand how can we improve this process. And when I say this, essentially, this is the paper that I was talking about, and it's on your tables. And I'm just going to deep dive a little bit, not too much. I know I'll not cost it. This is the main crux from the paper, where this proposed model actually outlines both the barriers as well as enablers to interdisciplinarity based on the qualitative research that we undertook. So this curriculum group, which Joe outlined, was set up in 2020, and between 2020 and 2021, that is peak COVID time, but we were actually collecting surveys and data online, and we were able to do around, we sent out 1,000 invitations, out of which 138 people responded back. That's in terms of this exploratory nature of paper, this number was sufficient. And we also did, that was the first phase of doing this online survey, to be able to gauge from the educators' perspectives as to why this need for interdisciplinarity, or whether there is at all requirement to raise this as an issue. That was the first phase. After that, we followed up with 7 key stakeholders from Asia and Africa and Europe. And we tried to understand what the enablers and barriers, this particular model that we are talking about, what this basically entailed. And as you will see here, in terms of results, there were several factors which came up: student demand, personal motivation, organizational factors, external campaigns, academic conferences. All these were identified as places for demand generation for agriculture nutrition linking. In addition, there was also a question on what materials do educators use and how can they access those. So essentially, as you see, there's a whole spread, right from essential reading to lecture slides to student handouts. People use a variety of methods. This question was essentially to ask what mode is preferred by students or by facilitators, so that we can customize our curriculum, which we make in different formats. And this is just a timeline to give you a context of where we are coming from and where we are going. And I would invite Francis and Rosemary to take this forward and explain further. The study results have been put on the table, like I said again, and we also have a poster in the adjoining room. So feel free to chat with us. In interest of time, I'm not delving deep into the findings. Over to you, Francis and Rosemary. Oh, what did I say? Francis, oh, I'm so sorry, Mike.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. So this next session, I will just walk you through briefly how we can then access and adapt the materials that we have developed in this working group, okay? So if you go to ANH's webpage and the CEWG page, you'll be able to see this teaching and training resources. And in this page, we're able to, it is a living directory. What does that mean? You're able to submit your teaching materials. Also, you're able to browse by topic the different materials that we have developed. On top of that, you're able to have also be able to send us any materials that you're using. Okay, so this is how the page looks like. Okay, so we developed specifically 5 key thematic topics, and the topics include agriculture, nutrition, health, linkages. And there is just an introduction because we know we are all coming from different backgrounds. Another key thematic topic we developed is climate change, environment, and sustainability. The details are also in there. We have a topic on One Health, and then gender, equity, and empowerment. And then finally, we have migration and fragile contexts. One key thing to note is these are all adaptable according to your context. You don't have to use the materials the way they are. You can adapt them to your own context because we acknowledge that we come from different fields and different contexts, so you just need to adapt those. So these are what is included in the materials. We have lesson plans of different length. Again, you just need to adapt to the length you need. We have already developed lecture slides. We have breakout activities, student notes, worksheets, case study templates, and ideas. And we also have examples of lectures that have been recorded. You just need to adapt them to your situation and context. Okay, given that, I would like to invite my dear Michael, we've been working with, to take you through the next session.
Thanks, Rosemary. So we're quite an exciting point. We've got these 5 topics. You see, we've got lesson plans, activities, resources with them. But I think we really do need your help today. We're developing the trainers sessions in the next few months. And I think there is a danger that people can just look at the slides and think, yeah, we'll deliver those. Yeah. Actually, what I want to go and delve it a bit further and make sure that what we're actually doing with the slides is addressing the key issues around interdisciplinary teaching, around people coming from different disciplines and working together, and around student engagement. And for that reason, what I'd like to do is ask a number of questions, 3 questions of you today, face-to-face, and of the people joining online. And when I'll pose those questions and ask you to write down, and we're going to collect those and use them in our training the trainers sessions. So just in terms of the practicalities of it, the online participants will be able to join will be able to log their thoughts via a Jamboard. And we've got someone online who's going to facilitate that with them in a minute. Participants in the room, what I've got is 3 questions, which I'll show you in a minute. And we've got 3 tables here with the questions on. And what I'd like you to do is just choose one table, a question that interests you and you feel you're able to give us something that we can value and make use of. And then we're going to have some short feedback on what you've suggested. So these are the questions, and I hope I can justify why I'm including them. The questions are, there we go. The questions are, what are the opportunities and challenges when working with students from different disciplines? And how can we make the most of those opportunities? And how can we address the challenges? Okay, so remember what we're doing. We're aiming this at postgraduate students who are coming from a variety of different disciplines. So this issue about people coming from the different disciplines, there may well be challenges about how they've been taught before and how they've learned, but there may be opportunities for them to explain and share with others. Very interesting topics, but I think we need insight from yourselves about how that might happen. And those insights couldn't be from members of staff, and if there are any students around, that would be great as well. The second thing that I think is really important is I'd love us to try and collate some ideas about what strategies can the trainer employ to encourage that all students engage actively. Yeah, because in these materials, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of coverage of concepts, and that's fine, but we need to be able to make sure that by the end of the session, the students have really understood these issues, sought feedback on their understanding, either from themselves and from their peers. So I'd really like some advice from you about how we can say to trainers, what are the strategies that they can use to encourage students to engage actively? And then this third one is slightly different, I think. I've just posed the question to you about, do students learn differently in different disciplines and in different global contexts? Because it may well be that an activity in one continent will go down well with those students, whereas another activity would be better in a different setting, in a different context. So it's really important for us to recognize that. So the question is, do students learn differently in different disciplines and in different contexts? And what are the implications for the design of these resources? And I think the key is that we said that they were adaptable. So we want to almost give the trainer license to say, who are the students that I'll be working with? Who are the trainers I'll be working with? And what's the best use of the materials in those contexts? Okay, so at that point, I invite you to, yes, sorry, question. Oh, yeah, teaching resources. So these are the resources that we are developing. Oh, actually, yes, so the session could be the hour-long session. So during the session, yeah. Yeah, so if they were engaging in an app, yeah, so if it was a 90-minute session, how do we make sure they're engaging rather than just listening to a lecture? So if the online people would like to go into the chat room, which people are going, breakout room, which they're going to be facilitated, and people in the room, if you'd like to choose the question. So the first question, number 1, is that number 1 on that question? Yeah, number 1 is there. Number 2 is here, and number 3 is over there. So if you choose one question that you wish to go to that table, have a chat with colleagues, and then write down on the flip chart your thoughts and ideas. Thank you. We'll just do this, I think, Tim, for 15 minutes. Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll come to a conclusion there. Thanks a lot. I can see that everybody was really pretty engaged and active, and I can see that a lot of interesting information is coming out already. The way we're going to do this now is the online group have been busy addressing one question because there was a little bit of a delay and the group is quite small. We thought it would be best for them to focus on the first question. So what we're going to do is give them the opportunity to provide us with some feedback on question 1. And then after we've done that, we'll actually go around the tables and ask a rapporteur from each of the table, just really to maybe pick out 2 or 3 key points that you think might be useful to share with the rest of the group. And all the rest of the information will not be lost. As was said earlier by Mike, we'll be able to use it in order to guide the framing of the training of trainer workshop sessions. And that will be made available to them. So if we can start off now with the online group, Pamela has been facilitating that, and I think they've actually identified one person who's going to provide a little bit of feedback to all of us. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we started by looking at the challenges when working with students from different disciplines. So the first challenge that we identified was that there's limited opportunities for students to work across disciplines. So you're either in this nutrition department or public health department or either agricultural economics. And so you do not have much opportunity to go, especially for postgraduate students, to go to the other departments to get to know what's happening there or what else they're learning, except for common courses like research methods and statistics probably. And then there's also limited time that was identified as a challenge. And the third challenge that we identified was that sometimes students may have limited knowledge of the other topics. So for instance, probably as someone did for postgraduate, at postgraduate level, they may want to come in with background in nutrition, but they have no idea about agriculture, economics, or what's happening with the soil scientists or public health. So then it becomes very challenging for the lecturer to introduce a new concept from the other disciplines, since there's limited time to cover the content in the curriculum. So you have either one semester or one academic year to cover content for the course that you are teaching. So academic staff normally just most times focus on what they've got to cover. We identified some opportunities, and one of them was that there's a possibility of integrating the materials in the curriculum. And this way, the lecturers will ensure that they cover the content that is in the curriculum. And so we've got universities that are revising their curriculum. And so this can be an opportunity for them to integrate some of the materials in the revised curriculum to ensure that the curriculum is all inclusive of agriculture, nutrition, and health. And then lecturers can be encouraged to teach across disciplines. So you can have more than one lecturer teaching one course. So we've got one who has the strength nutrition teaching part of the course, another one probably strength in agriculture teaching a part of the course, and another one in health of the course. And then also the opportunity tooling to be brought up to speed with content. Yeah, so now I just mentioned about the opportunity, the chance to retool lecturers. I think that was my last slide, and then encouraging them to teach across disciplines, and also integrating the materials in the curriculum. Those are the three opportunities that we identified. Thank you very much. And
yeah, thank you to you and the other members of your group for the work that you've done and producing those excellent points. I think I was just saying that probably many of those will chime with us. What we like to do now is maybe call on somebody from the table who are also from people who are physically present here to perhaps complement what your group has said. I see you've got a lot of information there. You've been very productive, but you have clustered the points in various categories. Maybe one thing you could do is kind of draw attention to the clusters, if that's okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you. This group identified maybe 4 sets of challenges, one around just the differences that students have in terms of different training and methodologies, speaking a different language, different terminologies, just the differences in their core knowledge. So a whole set around their differences based on their training. Second set was around interactions between the students, poor communication, poor understanding of one another, and the need for time to learn from one another. There's a lack of active participation from students, which would affect learning from one another. And then really just a lack of interest by students, that this is not something they're interested in. You want me to summarize some of the solutions? So one of the solutions, if there's a lack of interest, often students are required to take a course. So make these courses elective, then people will opt in and they'll be eager to learn. There is information on creating a safe environment for students when they're coming in with really different methodologies and feeling insecure. The environment has to be very safe. It should be inclusive. There are some topics around creating guidance for instructor. Oh, the other topic, sorry, was around instructors not being comfortable with the content. And so providing guidance to instructors on how to design a multi-sectoral course, learning objectives, syllabus, activities that leverage the differences in your classroom. And then we did talk about suggesting prerequisites, just so that the educators can know who's in the room. Have they met those prerequisites? Which ones? Do they have health students? Do they have nutrition students, agriculture, econ? Knowing your students and designing the course around them.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting point that you've come up with about the lack of interest in interdisciplinary courses among students. And this was something that came up in the survey for the needs assessment. But it's also interesting that one or two papers that have been published, one from the US in particular, actually indicates that there is quite a strong interest. So I wonder whether there are some, reasons behind this. But are there any students here, for example? No? We're okay. Maybe we are speaking to a kind of self-selected group, because the fact that you were here, I suggest, maybe indicates that you were interested. But from your experience amongst some of your fellow students, do you think that that is something that's a common factor, that students are a little bit hesitant to engage in interdisciplinary learning, but they're more interested just sticking to their individual disciplinary area?
My answer will be somewhat biased because I'm doing a master's in global health. So it is some sort of interdisciplinary. So I'm enjoying it. So what I can say is that it is possible and very enjoyable. So yeah, there are some fields whereby some students cannot be ready to do the other courses like intersections, something like that.
Thank you. So I've been informed by Joe that we actually do have until 7 o'clock before the next bus is going. So obviously we don't want to carry on for too long, but you can relax a little bit, that you're still going to have transport to get your refreshments. So we'll move on now to the table that addressed question 2, which I think is this one here. Have you got a representative who's going to provide some quick feedback?
I'm good at talking at little tables, but less to the larger groups. Okay, so we talked, what was our question first? So what strategies can we employ to encourage all students to engage actively in ANH teaching sessions? So we talked about a few strategies, but also, I guess, starting with the importance of looking at sort of different active learning strategies, which there's, I think, quite a lot of resources that could be useful. But we talked from examples, could be storytelling. So perhaps starting session with asking people the question, how has, whatever topics, how has climate change affected your daily life? How has whatever, I don't know, all the materials. One thing that storytelling does, so storytelling is like a really powerful way to bring people together very quickly. And so I think it's really joined to another point that was made, is the importance of establishing rapport with between the facilitator and students. And I think my understanding is you have very little time to be able to do that. And so you need to find a way to find that closeness quickly. We talked about how maybe it's a challenge or something to think about how with people coming from different departments will have different metrics, or their departments have different metrics for grading or whatever. So thinking about how everybody will be recognized, or some way of certifying everyone. It's like the importance of really a structural thing is making sure that you're in a room where students have the space to talk. And so I guess maybe expanding on that is thinking about make sure that you are, securing a room where you can create a circle, and versus everybody stuck in, tables that are lined up and looking forward. Talked about, organizing around problem-based learning. So focus on, specific problems that, perhaps relate to the curriculum, where all students can work together to find a solution. What else did we say? Now, June, what you're on. We talked about sort of thinking about the introduction using case studies. So using a case study as an example, that's an authentic case study generated from participants, from within the country that you're working, and then asking the participants then to generate their own case study. And again, I guess echoing what has been said is making sure that it's set up for inclusivity, making sure that somehow you encourage everybody to talk, to lead a discussion or to contribute. And I guess, sorry, another of the strategies was about using a flipped classroom. So, perhaps having a video that can be shown before the class and then coming together to talk about it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The point about storytelling, I think, is a very important one. And of course, that does require, a certain amount of skill and, practice in order to do it well. So that's something I think we all need to take on board, maybe how we can support people to do that effectively. I think that also came up when I was listening into this group a little bit. So that's interesting. That's a bit of crossover there. But I'm sure you've got lots of other points that you'd like to enlighten us on. Who is going to give the feedback from this group? I think I know who.
So, like you said, there was a lot of overlap with the other group, which is quite interesting. We noted that students do learn differently in different contexts and in different disciplines indeed, just like you also pointed out. We mentioned the issue of participatory learning styles that are more used now, especially after COVID. We do a lot of storytelling, group work, case studies, and essentially these are problem-based learning where the facilitator builds a problem around some concept so that the students can understand better. We also looked at some challenges with e-learning in terms of different disciplines not speaking the same language, and then different disciplines defining the same thing in different ways. So for example, food security to a nutritionist is different to that of the agriculturist. So there's the need at the beginning to manage these tensions if we are doing food systems kind of teaching. And also we need to be realistic that these challenges are there. We should expect them. It should not be a surprise to us. And we also talked about some solutions which you also brought out, the issue of team building and then building respect at the beginning of the sessions so that different hierarchies of the different disciplines are sorted out at the beginning. I think I'll hand over to Regina.
Said all basically, but I think other solutions we talked about was also making sure that when you bring these different disciplines to learn, let's say nutrition, you have to let them see the linkages between their discipline and nutrition, then they can appreciate it better. We also talked about creating commonalities. So they are on the same level and want to work together. And even when you also to get them to want to work together to create research topics that bring the different disciplines together. And that's what makes them now want to work together and to learn things that are not within their disciplines. And we also said that one of the things, solutions also would be assessment, when to make sure that assessments are certified. And so even though it is not their discipline, but because assessment is compulsory and they will be certified if they get to do the assessment, then they may want to do them. Those are some of the things that I can say in addition.
One thing, yeah, one point also which we
Very
mentioned.
point, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
we talked also the issue of policy, because if let's say you want to talk something about the nutrition to an economist, it becomes a problem. But when we have those linkages created around, that means we'll have a society whereby we'll be able to understand what we're saying, and it will not be a challenge to come up with the policies which will be able to be understood by everyone and to be used. And in that way, then we're going to move towards the common goal and the development. That's what I wanted to add.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you very much, everybody, for engaging so actively in the discussion. A lot of very useful points which will be taken on board. Our group actually was a kind of multidisciplinary group, and it was an interesting experience working together and learning from each other. That's something which, I think Joe and his colleagues had put a lot of thought into beforehand. But I do have a confession to make, or we have a confession to make. We should acknowledge that the materials were not really developed by us. There's a lot of, additional input that was made by others who are not present here today. So we'd like to acknowledge their input. And as has been said before, the idea is that these materials are, available to be used and adapted to suit the context in which they're going to be used. And as I understand it, the support center, which Elena and others who are present at this meeting, I think, are available. I know that one or two of you have already said that you've got materials that you feel might be useful for some of these courses. So please, it would be great if you think that you've got materials that, could be useful. Otherwise, for your own purposes, explore the resources and which I think will be made available very shortly. Yeah. We weren't sure, Joe, whether you were going to be able to be present for the wrap up here, but I'll hand over to you now just to sort of close.
Thanks, Tim. And thanks, everyone. I mean, this has been really rich for us. We'll take all this back and incorporate it. We really will into the next phase of this work. And actually, the next phase is potentially really exciting way to also engage if anyone's interested. If this is something that people in this room want to join us on the next part of the journey with, so when we publish the materials, what we want people to do is, if they're happy to use them, is to sort of, and especially if they adapt them and add case studies from their own contexts, is to then upload them back onto the site and say, I'm for instance in Chad, I used this material, I inserted my own case study based on the context and the circumstances here. You might find it useful if you're in a similar area, or these are the things I did. And we want to create like a sort of crowdsource, different ways of adapting these, but also importantly, we're going to be thinking about running training courses in not just the subject matter, but also in the teaching methods and styles over the next year. Some of these will be online and will be free, but some of them will be regional. We're just at the moment exploring the potential to run one regional training workshop in somewhere in South Asia and somewhere across Africa, where we hope there might be some interested people who might become champions of this, or master trainers potentially, who might want to come spend an intensive week of doing this kind of thing, and also learning about sharing teaching methodologies and pedagogies, and also getting stuck into the subject matter and then taking it back to their institutions or their countries or their colleagues and sharing these things and creating a bit of a more sustainable type of model. So yeah, if you're interested in these things, that's the site of the working group, and you can always get in touch with us on email, and we'll stay in touch. Yeah. So with that, I just want to say a massive thank you to the working group members and all the support staff here who've helped to prepare all these things, and hope you can all come on the 7 o'clock bus for the drinks. Cheers.